Welcome to Two Deep, Hokies Under the Influence, a Sons of Saturday podcast. My name is Pete Berthaud, and again, I'm without co-host Robbie, but I've got a special show for you today because I'm going to have several different co-hosts throughout the podcast. This is the Friends from College show that I mentioned on the last episode. So I'm going to chat with a handful of my old friends from back in the day, just take the temperature of their VT fandom, how hard they're rooting for Tech these days, their thoughts on the team, Coach Pry, how they see Virginia Tech maybe fitting into the national landscape of college football 2023. And then we're going to do some fun stuff as well. So maybe you'll get to know me and them a little bit more personally. But first, I guess I'll just do a cheer since Rob isn't here. Just a cheers to old friends. So cheers to that. Couple news and notes. Before we get to the chat with our first guest, the realignment stuff that I was talking about in the last podcast, it kind of went into overdrive. Arizona State, and Utah are in fact heading to the Big 12 with Colorado. That's something that was expected. However, during the day, I think it was 2 days ago, I want to say Saturday, it was the snip, snap from The Office, because we thought Oregon and Washington were going to stay. And then we thought they were going to go. And it turns out they're going to the Big 10. We got Arizona State, and Utah heading to the Big 12. And the Pac-12 is down to just 4 teams. So I don't know if they're going to end up adding San Diego State or some of the other Mountain West teams, a Fresno State, but it's kind of sad because there's over 100 years of history with the Pac-12 that has been destroyed just in the last 72 hours or so. But it sucks. The Big Ten was a little bit predatory when they went after USC and UCLA, and slowly but surely that led to the demise of the conference. Going to the FSU thing, because that I talked about it in the last episode, but they're apparently now working with JP Morgan to figure out the financials of the buyout. And so that kind of shows you how airtight the grant of rights is for the ACC, because you're not working with a big firm like that if you found a loophole where you can maybe get out of the payment. You are going to pay a lot of money to get out of it. So that's where we're at with FSU. They're trying to raise the money. We keep joking that they're the Saudi Knowles. They're going to be, like Live Golf, just getting paid a boatload of money, but someone's going to end up paying that out for them, and we'll figure that out as we go down the road here. Everyone is making jokes about how VT is going to end up in the Sun Belt now, because once FSU leaves, Clemson can't be far behind. Maybe UNC or UVA can't be far behind them either. So I want to hold off on the doom and gloom because we still got this year to play out. We're going to get a payment from FSU, it seems, if they do in fact end up getting out. And then we'll see where the chips fall, because there are a group of other teams. And if the ACC were to blow up, well, see a BC, see a Syracuse. We'll find a conference, like I said in the last episode, that we're still a valuable brand in the world of college football. And that's something I'm going to talk to my friends about too, where they feel that we stand when it comes to the national perspective. So hold off on the doom and gloom for now. Let's try to enjoy this upcoming season, see if we can get back to a bowl, see if Pry is starting to build something, and we'll go from there. It was funny, I thought, though, that the ACC said they were meeting on Friday night to discuss realignment scenarios. That was after everything happened. So always a step behind, it seems. Jim Phillips was a step behind at Northwestern. I'll leave that one there. And he's a step behind now. So I think, without further ado, I'm going to get to the guest. I just wanted to run down those few notes and notes. Before I get to the camp notes, I wanted to bring on my first guest, which is my old friend, Brian. Brian, welcome to the show.
Hey, man. How are you?
Can you hear me all right?
Yeah, I can.
All right, nice. I'm going to know, first of all, I wanted to address the hat I'm wearing. I am wearing a Sunday Funday hat. I look like a douche. I know it, but it is a Sunday. I've got a beer here. I think all my other friends are going to be drinking a little alcohol, a little beer. So we're doing a little Sunday Funday. So I'm going to stick with the hat, even though I know I look like an idiot. And I may know answers to a lot of these questions I'm going to ask, but I'm asking them for the sake of the listener and to also see if I know my friends as well as I think I do. So me and Brian, we met on our floor freshman year in Miles Hall, second floor, all male dorm, but we managed to make the best of it. you've known about the Hokies a long time. Your dad went to Tech. Your brother
Yeah.
was still at Tech when we were there, but he was a little bit older than us. And you might have had some extended family that also made their way to Blacksburg over the years. So is it safe to say you've been a VT football diehard your whole life?
Yeah. From the beginning, we grew up in Richmond, and we were the only ones that liked VT at the time. Everybody was UVA, UNC. Listened to a lot of games on the radio when I was little. Once we got rolling in the early 90s, it more people were interested in rooting for us. But there was a lot of jokes, a lot of elementary school, middle school jokes coming my way, being the one VT fan. So
I
yeah,
hear that.
it's been great.
And you taught me a lot too, because I was a Penn State fan growing up. So when I got to Tech, you were the one that knew about Drunken Miller and the 99 team, even because that was a
Yep.
couple years before we started, and 1995. And that's when we really started to take off and we strung all those bowls together. But let's get into these fall camp notes before I go into some more questions with you. Cole Beck, back as a special
Oh,
teams
he's
player.
back.
he's he's back, and it looks like it's going to be mostly kick return, maybe a little bit of coverage, some scout team wide receiver, perhaps. But do you think that Cole Beck will score a touchdown before this year is over?
I mean, you mentioned not being doom and gloom. I felt like that was directed at me, but no,
No,
I don't
no,
think
no,
he's
not at
gonna.
all.
I don't think Cole's gonna get in the end zone this year. I hope he does. He's
it,
fast.
it would have to be on a kick return, though. I would have
Yeah,
to
for
imagine.
sure.
They're rotating Wells and drones with the ones until something tells us differently. Like that's how Pry put it, is that they're kind of just want to see if a guy um, steps up maybe and looks the part. Are you handicapping that race at all? Do you have a guy that you think is gonna be the
I
QB1?
think we're gonna see how the season starts, and if the rails start to fall off, they'll go to drones. If Wells can get a little touch on some of his passes and we win some games we weren't expecting to, maybe they stick with him. If not, I think it might be the drone show here halfway through the season.
Yeah, if it starts out like the Ryan Willis a couple years ago,
Right.
where we had the BC loss and then it doesn't look so good, and then you bring in Hooker and everything changes, maybe that's the scenario. But I'm hoping that the Wells we saw in the spring game will carry through a bit here.
Absolutely.
We saw Antoine Powell Ryland make a really nice spin move and get to the QB on one of the highlights on Twitter. And that's all we're going off of right now. Like, I know the media got to see some practice, but as far as the fans are going, we're only getting those few Instagram, Facebook, whatever it is, highlights, social media. And so, hey, he made a play. If guys are making plays, that's always nice. The whole team crowded around him and got real excited. So we need that pass rush. I'm hoping that some of those guys can step up. I really like that APR pickup in the portal. I think he could be good for us this year.
Yeah, I was looking through some of the transfers. There's a whole bunch of names that we're gonna have to get used to, and hopefully we'll get used to some big plays and not the typical transfer guy that comes in and is a contributor but not a playmaker. So we
Exactly.
have so many that one or two or three possibly will be big contributors. That's what I'm hoping for.
I got a couple notes on the O line before we talk about your boy Dax here. Jesse Hansen retired from football. And he was a good Hokie in terms of just like he really loved the team when he committed. He always seemed like he was about to be a contributor, but the injuries caught up with him. And so now we have one less guard in the offensive line competition. But Parker Clements was out there saying some pretty good stuff about the line. He said the new guy that came in, one of our transfers, Frady, has been working at right guard with Bob Schick. And Clements says he's a really good fit with the team. I think Frady will probably get the start, but Schick is that guard / tackle utility knife that they could move back and forth. And hey, Xavier Chaplin's a real green player on the left tackle position, so maybe Schick will bounce over there too. But they talked about the switch to the zone scheme, how it may be a little bit easier for the guys to pick up, just because it's not so much about technique; it's about getting to the line of scrimmage and just applying pressure to the defensive player. So everything that Clement said, I feel good about. There's a lot of chemistry within the O line. I don't know if I buy that it's better than last year's or not. I mean, this is one of the biggest question marks we have going forward with this team is the offensive line. can they actually get the run going? But he did say that this is the best we've been running the ball since Coach Pry got here, which sounds familiar to the best
You
we've
hear
thrown the
that a
ball.
lot,
Yeah,
right?
right. Like with the Fuente thing and Braxton Burmeister. But hey, man, we do need to run the ball better this year. And I'm hoping that just getting that especially with Hansen going, getting Frady in the mix, like that was huge for us. Competition at the Mike position. And I know Brian has been listen, we've all had issues with Dax because while making a lot of plays and being, just a cool guy to listen to and root for, he's an excitable player. He wasn't always in the right position. And sometimes he would be going backwards when he's trying to make a tackle. So replacing him, I still think will be a challenge. And there's 4 guys, McDonald, Keller, Stone Snyder, the transfer from VMI, and Matt Johnson, who's a redshirt senior and I think basically like a walk-on for most of his time here. How do you see that Mike position playing out for this upcoming season?
I think it's going to be a lot of what we saw the past 2 or 3 years for a while until they get some playing time underneath them. It seems like whoever's in there for the first year, they struggle quite a bit. And I think that's the position we're in now. Same kind of comments with drones. And if the season's kind of going in the direction that we weren't hoping for, maybe start the younger guy, get him some experience. But hearing those names, I couldn't tell you who's going to come out on top.
I do think several of them will play, and Keller was the guy they had earmarked a couple years ago as, he's going to be the new stud linebacker.
Right.
And he's got the right body type, and McDonald's a big guy too. So I like those 2 guys future wise, but I feel like Stone Snyder, a 3-time All-American at the FCS level, like why wouldn't he be the starter? Like if he, sure. I know it's at FCS to FBS, but like he had 107 tackles last year in not so many games. I really feel like Stone could be the guy.
Yeah, he's consistent. Like you said, playing from VMI, he's probably, I don't know what his size and weight are, but I'm assuming he's a little smaller, not get too many D1 offers.
Probably, slightly smaller than like a Dax, yeah.
But he'll be a good fill-in until they can get some of the recruiting talent that's coming up next year.
Well,
we'll have to wait and see.
That's a good segue because I do think our floor at the linebacker position with Stone is decently high, at least at Mike.
Yeah.
But going into this year, speaking about positions, what do you think is the position you feel best about going into 2023?
DBs for sure. Yeah. How they played last year, they look hungry. They're all coming back for the most part. They're looking really good. I'm expecting to have what we're used to seeing at DB this season for sure.
Yeah, I like the safeties and the starting corners, but the backup corners all being young does worry me a bit. I think it was JC Price on his most recent interview that said, though, the further you get away from the ball, the quicker you can contribute. And we've seen true freshman defensive backs have an impact, whether it's Kendall Fuller or Brandon Faison or going back Brandon Flowers. I mean, we've had a long history of developing these defensive backs, but also just some of them coming right in and being great. So I'm hoping I was actually rooting for Cotman, but they've moved Cotman to the star position now. But there's a Braylon Johnson, Christian Williams. I mean, there's a handful of guys that could potentially contribute, but just like every position on Tech, the depth is what scares you, right?
Right. Well, with 2 years ago, not having hardly any recruits or them all transferring, this is what we're going to live with for this year and next year, with backfilling with transfers until we get these young recruits in and a year under their belt. So I'm excited. Not trying to give up on this year yet, but looking forward to the future for sure.
And I do want to get to your record prediction for this year, but before we do that, other than quarterback, what position do you want Tech to like bring back the old days the most? Like, what position do you want us to be elite at again?
I want to see Elise Suggs, Kevin Jones, that rushing game that you always, when you need 3 yards, you know you're going to get it.
The untouchables.
I know. Gosh, it was great. They were
that
all
was when we
over.
first
They
got to
were
Tech
all over
too.
game day. Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure. And it was. I mean, it was like that before them in the '90s, running the ball, getting the short yards.
Stiff. Yeah.
Now it's just it. I don't know what our identity is on offense, and I like to see it go back to get some good, solid 3 yard gains on first down or 5 yard. That would be nice.
And
Instead of the
bringing in
1 yard
Tootin.
gain. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. The bringing in Tootin will help with that. A little bit more of a powerful back, even though he's not super big, like he's
Right.
stoutly built. Pairing him with Malachi, that should be nice. And Pry has talked about like he wants to run the football. I don't think it's going to be Wisconsin, but I think
No.
it's you can't. That's just not today's game. However, starting with the run game is still important, and he wants to run the quarterback, and he wants to have some effective running backs. And so I'm with you on that one. Is there any other positions that when you look back on Tech, when you're like, God, we were so good at that position, I wish we could get back there?
Well, we talked about linebacker with Zaven Hall, and that's who we had to watch for our 4 years. And
Yeah.
that you kind of got, we were definitely spoiled with having two of the best linebackers to ever play for four. They played all 4 years too. And since then, maybe Cody Grimm and Tremaine.
Tremaine was
But
3. Yeah. And Tremaine was
and
awesome, but he did play
right,
3. Yeah.
right. I feel like you have a good linebacker crew. It makes the defense just come together. I know that's pretty obvious, but it would be great to have some big recruits come in and fill those shoes.
Yeah, and when you think about, Xavier, it was the versatility, and that's something that
Yeah,
I'm hoping Kelly Lawson can kind of remind us of. Like, when you have
right.
those versatile linebackers that can come off the edge, but also get back in coverage, it makes a huge difference for your defense. This is kind of a little bit bigger picture. As we move to the 12-team playoff era next year, what do you think would be reasonable expectations going forward? Like a playoff trip every cycle, like once every 4 years, a little bit more than that, a little bit less than that, and how reasonable is it now to think that we should be competing for the ACC title regularly?
Gosh, that's hard to say right now with where we're at with our roster, but getting back to 10 years ago, it would be great. I think every 4 years competing for an ACC title should be the bar right now. We like to see it every season, but they've changed the divisions up, so it's a little harder to
Yeah.
get into that title game. But every 4 years seems reasonable for now.
All right. I got some fun ones for you. We're going to take it back just a little bit. We've been on a lot of road trips together, VT road trips, seen games in a lot of different states, a lot of different bowls, ACC championships, just openers, whatever.
Absolutely.
Which games that we've been to together on the road stand out in your mind?
Oh gosh, there's always some mental anguish or something that goes on every time we go. The
Yes.
one of the most fun trips we went on was the Florida State first ACC title game in Jacksonville, taking Andrew's car down there, staying in it was either the Scottish Inn or the Swedish
The
Inn.
Scottish Inn, yeah.
Might be the finest establishment.
That was the smelliest car
Yes.
ever on that
Yes.
trip back from Jacksonville, for sure. We lost that game too, but that was still a
We
hell of a
did.
weekend.
Yeah. Greg and I went out after we wanted to eat some hot dogs. I think everybody else stayed in.
Chili
That
dogs were good for
yeah,
the ride home. Yeah, yeah, I
yeah.
remember that.
That was
Uh,
a that was a fun one for
I
sure.
know you remember that Michigan bowl game
Oh gosh, yeah, I
for
do.
all the wrong reasons. Me leaving that game, I don't think I've ever been angrier leaving a game, and also just completely wrecked.
Yeah, that was a really interesting. I'm glad we got out of there.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay,
Let's
because
put it that way.
that was a big meltdown for sure.
I wanted that. Tech has never won 12 games in a season, and
They
that
had it.
should have been our 12th win of that season, and
Yeah.
I was upset. Uh, what is your best VT football memory while we were still in college? It could be a game
Yeah.
revolving around a game, but a
Well,
tailgate, post game, whatever.
one of the best memories unrelated to a game was when Mason, my close friend from high school, he walked on to Tech. He made it, and he told me, and we were so excited. I was really excited for him, and we were running up and down Behringer Dorm, and everybody's looking at us like we're crazy. That was a really cool moment
That's awesome.
for him and me. And then the games that I think there were two games in 2003. We played A&M in the Hurricane. I was overserved for that game, and then Miami. And
Oh,
with
03.
Mason, yeah, 03 with Mason having he being on the team, he got nice tickets. So we're sitting 5 yards, 5 rows from the field on the 50, and it was loud. People talk about it.
I mean,
It was
that's
crazy.
probably the loudest I've ever heard the stadium, and one of my favorite, the Roscoe Give It To Me game. Like
Yeah,
that was
yeah,
just
that
an
game was a
incredible game.
blast.
And it was
Yeah.
Halloween weekend too, right? So
Yes,
that was
yes.
just a crazy, crazy weekend. All right. Before I let you go, post 1999, what do you think our best team was?
Our best team, I'd say either that '03 team or the 2005 team.
Even though the 03 team didn't have a strong finish, you think
Yeah,
they were loaded up.
they were loaded. They had a great team. Didn't have the great record. 2004, that was the USC intro year.
Yep.
I mean,
Yep.
we beat some. I think we beat 2 or 3 top 10 teams
And we played
that
Auburn in
season.
the Sugar Bowl.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. I try to forget that Auburn game.
I know.
And then 2007 was another
Oh,
big year.
yeah. Was that the
And
fumble against UNC?
I don't remember
We
how.
lost. We lost a game against UNC. Well, that was the Kansas Bowl game. I remember that.
Yeah,
That
yeah.
was devastating. But
And
yeah, those are good choices, man.
we lost to with 2007. We lost to LSU
Oh yeah, yeah.
away. That's when we burnt the Tyrod
You went
shirt.
to that game.
I did. That was a hard game to go to. And then we lost to BC. Both teams
God.
are ranked second, and we dominated that BC game. Josh
Yeah,
Morgan just
that's the
got
Matt Ryan game.
yeah.
Everyone knows that one. And that year, Virginia Tech finished number 1 in the computer polls in the BCS, something that I never forget. We finished 3 in the
Mhm.
BCS, but we were number 1 in the computer because the ACC back then, it had a
Yeah,
fantastic year. Even UVA was good that year. It came down to us and UVA to go to the ACC title game. That was one
yeah.
of the biggest games we played that year. That was Chris Long was still on
Mhm.
UVA that year. All right, before you go, record prediction. What is it for 2023?
Oh gosh. Not to be doom and gloom, I'm thinking 4 wins this
4?
year.
Okay.
Yeah, 4.
How do you feel about the ODU opener?
I feel good about that. I think
Okay.
that's one of the gosh, if we don't win the ODU opener, that's gonna really derail my prediction.
It's going to change a lot of my
But
predictions as well.
yeah, yeah, I feel good about 4. I mean, between 3 and 5, I think is where we're at. Maybe
Okay.
6.
You think bowl is very unlikely?
Yes.
Okay.
We're gonna have to see something on what our offensive identity is beginning of the season real soon to have an idea. I'm not as confident on offense, but I want to be surprised. If we come
I'm
out
with you, dude.
shooting, looking real good, then maybe bowl eligible. I think that's the ceiling for sure.
I am predicting a 6-6, but I respect your 4 wins, and I know a lot of other fans out there feel the same way, and that's why you're here. But thank you for coming on.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
I think I ran through all the questions I needed to. I'm going to bring in our next guest, Brian. Thanks again, bud. I'll talk
Thanks,
to you soon.
man. Talk to you later.
Later.
Bye-bye.
Hello,
Hi,
Nicole. How you doing?
I'm doing great. How are you, Pete?
This is my friend Nicole. I believe we met when I was a junior in college. Your friends had moved into the apartment complex where some of my friends were living, and I think I had just moved into. The memory of how it all went down gets a little hazier each year, but bottom line is we became friends at VT and then continued that friendship into the Arlington days. And that's where it really blossomed and took off.
Blossomed. A lot of things blossom. Our drinking, going out, a little bit
And then
much.
and then I moved to DC. It continued to go. We were late bloomers when it came to the whole marriage game, and so we had a lot of
Very
fun
true.
in Arlington back in the day. But I wanted to start first with your level of fandom, just for the listeners. Like, how would you describe your fandom to the listeners? Are you a diehard fan? Are you a casual? Like, give us a couple adjectives here.
Well, I'm sure the listeners are dying to know my fandom level.
Hey, you are the first female on the podcast.
Hey!
It's been 8 years. We had a female caller, I think, last year on our
Wow.
reaction line, but you're
Pete,
the first guest.
let's get some representation here,
I
huh?
know. I kind of felt like a jerk today when I thought about it, but yes,
Oh, I'm
you are the
sure
first one. So
it's totally fine. Well, I'm here to
fandom
rock
level.
it. Yeah, no, it's funny. I actually grew up a huge Florida State fan. My parents both went there. I was conceived there. And then we moved up to Virginia, and my mom was such a huge fan. She drove us to any ACC game at the time in the 90s. So we went to UVA, we went to Duke, we went to UNC, we went to Virginia quite a bit. So, and then I applied early admission to Virginia Tech because at the time it was the only Virginia school that didn't require an essay, the only decent Virginia school that
You
didn't
are correct.
require
I
an
remember that too.
essay. It was the time. So I wanted to rest on my GPA and I didn't want to do much more. So I went early admission in 99. So when we played Florida State for the national championship, I'm sorry to say, rooting for Florida State. I had never
Old
been to
habits die
Tech.
hard. I get it.
I just and it was kind of a wild thing. I go to Tech. I love it. Everybody falls in love with Tech. I don't know anybody that didn't love it. And it was during school I didn't go to a lot of games as a fan because I was a cater waiter. And so I was working every game. We were in the suites. We had to do catering every game. So we worked 13-hour days, game day. So I never usually went to games when I was in school. But then fast forward to I graduate, some of our friends stay. You're still there. There's some people I know that are still there. We have Pete and I, some dear friends that stay there, live there, have a beautiful house there. So for me, my fandom grew much more after school. I haven't missed a year except for 2020, which was a weird year, but I haven't missed a year since 2004. So, to me, the program is so wonderful because it provides a place for us all to go every single year, and we just have the best time with our friends. And it's been tough the last couple years.
Yeah.
We're not great. We're not great.
No. And that leads me to my next question is us not being in the spotlight. Does it affect your desire to get in front of a TV for games? Does it affect your desire to go down for games?
It does not affect my desire to go down for games. I will go to an empty stadium down at Virginia Tech. Don't care. I want to go to Tots. I'm good. So I don't mind that. But yeah, it's tough. First of all, sometimes you can't see our games because we're just simply not on a big
It
network.
can be challenging on
It
some of
can be a
those
little challenging,
lower
but no,
tier
I
games.
mean, it's tough. And, I married a huge Wisconsin fan and they're really freaking good. And so it's annoying because we're not. And
Yeah.
so, I'm not watching as much on TV as and don't forget, Pete, you remember we used to get together to watch games.
Yes.
There used to be 4 or 5 Arlington bars that were VT bars at the time. And that's kind of fallen off a little more. So that excitement is kind of
I
not
miss the
there.
Bailey's days.
Oh my gosh, you wouldn't recognize that mall anymore. And there was carpet in Bailey's, and you could smoke there at the time.
You'd come
So
out smelling like a chimney every game, but
disgusting,
you had the
disgusting.
best day.
The best day.
So it's interesting to get that perspective as a woman and now a mother, your fandom growing over the years because you just love the community aspect of getting down
Yeah,
to Tech. And
yeah,
we actually are in the process of planning to go to the NC State game this year, which
that's
I'm
right. We are. Someone,
super
come
pumped up
on.
about.
We can have a too deep meetup.
We got to do it. You've been to so many games. Which ones stand out to you? And you can use ones from college, ones after college. Like, which games have you been to over the years that you're just like, gosh, I was so glad I was there, or like, I can't
Yeah.
believe I was there?
Yeah, that's a good sorry, my dog's in the background. It's a good question. Well, first of all, I did go to that Auburn game that y'all mentioned, the bowl game. We drove overnight from DC. We drove to Blacksburg, picked some people up, and then drove overnight from Blacksburg to New Orleans to get to that game. That was a really fun game.
I
Not
was there
the
as well.
Yeah,
I don't
we
think
had a
we
good time.
like
No,
we
we
barely knew
didn't.
each other or not at all, but
Yeah,
like I
yeah.
wasn't even 21 yet.
Oh, Pete,
I used Joey's
me
ID to
too.
get into the bars.
Joey. Yeah, that game was fun. I actually think, that game that you and I and we brought our little crew to, that one October game where it rained like
Oh, it was
crazy.
Pitt. Yeah.
Oh yeah, and we thought, oh, this we were so excited. We had hyped up Blacksburg to all these people that had never been before. We were like, it's unforgettable, and then we get there and it's like, but we ended up having an amazing time.
It was the most miserable like weather slash performance by the team game that you could imagine. It was the Pitt
Absolutely.
100 yards of offense game for the listeners. It was cold, rainy, whatever. But we did have a great weekend.
We had a great time. And we also went to the isn't it still the longest ACC game on record when we had the like 4 overtimes?
It was 6 overtimes. I know you were there with
6.
Michael and
And
some other
Greg,
people.
Greg, who
Greg
is a
Craig.
huge for
Okay.
the people that don't Ohio State fan, huge Ohio State fan. But he came down and I will say neither Michael nor Greg give two about Virginia Tech, but they were into that game because 6 overtimes, how can you not get invested in 6
I was
overtimes?
so jealous that you were there for that. I was
It
hoping
was
you were going to bring that
amazing.
up because
Yeah.
I was on my honeymoon. And
Oh,
so
that's why you weren't there.
I was
Otherwise, you would have been there.
yes, I probably would have. We were in Hawaii watching that game. It started at like 9
That's
a.m.,
right,
but
that's right.
80 degrees, beautiful outside, and I am in a dark bar with my new wife, like
God love
watching a
her.
6
God love
overtime
her.
ACC piece of crap game. But it turned out to be a very cool game, and I'm
We
glad we got to
won.
go.
It was amazing.
When you're in Blacksburg,
Mhm,
you talk about the tailgates and
mhm,
going down visiting old friends.
mhm.
What is your ideal game day weekend experience? Are you bar hopping, setting up the tailgate? Or do you need to go to Tots for just one drink? Or will you stay there all night? Do you need to eat somewhere? Like, what do you do on your ideal weekend at
I don't know how much time you have.
Tech?
No, I mean, the perfect experience starts Friday. You gotta get down there at a good time, you gotta stop at Sheetz on the way, you gotta get downtown as soon
MTO.
as you can. You gotta you gotta overdo it even though you promised yourself you wouldn't, because you got a big day the next day, but you're so excited. The drinks are so cheap. You
Yeah.
can't help yourself. And we have sort of a blueprint, I guess, and it's changed a lot through the years. Now everybody's freaking having kids, but it starts Friday night. It goes into Saturday. Our tailgates have really blossomed. It used to be like me and you going to Arby's and getting some sandwiches and showing up with chips. But now we have a friend who goes all out. He's got an amazing parking pass. He takes care of everything for us. He
Yeah,
themes the
really.
tailgates depending on who we are playing. Hutch, he's a Blacksburg institution in my mind. But so, in my mind, I love a 3:30 game. I want to get up at a relaxed pace. I want to get all of our beer cold, and then I want to get to the tailgate. I want to party, party, party. I want to get there for the entrance, which is usually a challenge. We got to set a
It
million
is a challenge.
alarms to get to the front,
For
make
drinkers, it
ourselves
can be a
go.
challenge.
Yeah, and then you roll straight from the game right downtown. And
Okay.
the only
Are you
bar
getting
that
a rail?
always
Okay.
it's a rite of passage because I don't know the last time we went down and we didn't have somebody new, and that's our selling point to everybody.
Yeah.
Got to get a
Yeah.
rail. Don't get more than two. Two is pushing it.
2 is pushing it.
You need to get some sort of permission for two, but three is out of the question.
Definitely. Absolutely. You will barf.
You
You
will,
don't
yeah, you will regret it. Yeah, it's rail liquor. It's disgusting.
All right. So now we're going to take it back just a little bit.
Mhm.
When you would hit the town on the
Mm,
weekend in
mm.
college, what was the move? Did you do a power hour? Was because some of the bars
Listen.
have changed over the years, so
Oh,
I'm not even sure.
it's insane. And I had to text Karen and Ron to get some because I couldn't remember. But no, it's okay. This is embarrassing, but whatever. I was in the dance company. That's how I met our mutual friend, and we thought we were very cool. And so we would go to the dancing places and we would do our little Britney Spears numbers when they played the songs, and we thought we were just like the best. So we went to some like weird, like we went to the Nerve. I don't even know
Oh,
if
I
the Nerve
remember
was,
the Nerve,
yeah,
Nerve, Nerve. Yeah.
Nerve. We went to, it was the library and then it turned into Water Street.
I liked
Um,
Water Street.
yeah, Water Street. The library was, we're going to the library. Oh, how clever.
Yeah.
We used to also go. It's been a million. It was Preston's, and then it was Woody's, and now it's Sharky's. That one on the corner. And we've done quite a few dance numbers, and that is just so embarrassing. And then we would always have to go to Tots. But when I started school, I was actually 17, and so a lot of times we would go to Hokie House, Ho Ho, because they were 18 and up. And so if you went in and you just were like, I'm 18, they didn't care. If you tried to be 21, they would check your ID. But if you just went in trying to be 18, they did not mind.
Okay.
At the time, I'm sure things have been locked up since.
Well, I think the rails also used to be like 22 ounces.
Oh
Like
my God.
they used to be
Unhinged.
bigger.
Unhinged. Yeah. Cannot believe.
Things have changed a lot. But
Yeah.
yeah, so I think that bar, it was Woody's before it was Sharky's on the corner down there.
And it was Preston's before your time. Yeah.
And then Cabo Fish Taco
Yeah.
was Bailey's.
Yep.
Now, you might have been able to get into Bailey's with a fake ID, but that might even predated you a little bit in terms of being 21.
Well, I didn't turn 21 until after break of senior year. So I was 21 for much earlier than
young. Yes. Well, Nicole, thank you so much for coming on today. Did you have any? Did you want to give your record prediction for this year? Do you have?
Oh God, it's embarrassing.
We play 12 games.
I'm probably closer to your prediction than Bobo's, but I don't know. I think we could end up at I'm gonna say 5-7. I don't think we're gonna get to a 6-6, but I think we could do a 5-7.
Okay.
Oh, I also have a beer.
Oh yeah, what beer are you drinking?
Oh,
what you got?
I can't see. It's a Hardywood peach triple with Virginia peaches.
Oh, how is it? Is it sour?
I'm gonna see. No, it's a triple A. I'm gonna see. It's a big boy.
Oh.
Whew. Sweet.
Does it have like a sugar pop to it, or is it kind of sour?
It's very light and then also very peachy. So it's not super beer-y.
And are you a Hardywood person?
8.2%. No, I just went into our fridge to get something that I thought you guys hadn't done before.
I don't think we've had that one before. So
and then Virginia peaches,
Yeah, and hey, you gotta love it. I thank you, Nicole. That's
of course. You guys are doing the Lord's work over here, Pete.
Oh yes, we try to keep people informed, the everyman's opinion, but this is really like I love this because I've been wanting to do a show like this for a long time where I can get a wide variety of opinions and also a little trip down memory lane.
Yeah, so, this is what the people want, Pete.
We needed the woman's voice.
Yeah, oh, touch. Sure. Mm-hmm. Yep. All right. Well, y'all have fun.
I'm going to pick up our next guest. Bye, Nicole.
Bye.
Andrew, what's going on, buddy?
Hey, what's going on, Pete? Good to see you.
I'm doing great, man. Good to see you too. I'm looking for our other guest, but we're going to start with you because Nick was on the golf course earlier. I don't know if he
just texted me he was hopping on right now. So
okay, cool. Andrew has been a good friend of mine since we were in high school. We actually grew up in the same neighborhood. We went to the same high school, same college, and like really grew up together, for lack of a better term. And your dad went to Tech. And in fact, I would credit you with the reason that I went to Tech because I remember sitting in high school and they have all the different colleges come in and speak to you. And you're like, oh, I'm going to go to the Virginia Tech one. And Michael Vick had just gone there. So I was like, oh, I've heard of them. And we go and, you're like, my dad was an engineer there. And I just started really liking what that guy had to say. And then we went down and visited. We did our orientation together, a whole 9 yards. And so you do get credit for my Virginia Tech fandom. So I'm glad you're here, buddy. I still see that old picture of us at orientation in the visors and just crack up.
Yeah, visors are no good. Yeah, it's funny because I remember back in the day you were kind of trashing Virginia Tech football. Like, yeah, I know they went to the national title, but I'm a Penn State fan, so
yeah, you're the only person that'd be able to call me out on that. But yeah, you know what? That's the same thing. I was a Penn State fan, just like Nicole was talking about being a Florida State fan. And freshman year, when Larry Johnson was running for all those yards, hit 2,000, nearly won the Heisman, like I was kind of rooting harder for Penn State than Virginia Tech at the time. And slowly but surely, my Tech fandom took over. Our other friend, Nick, has joined the chat. Nick, how you doing, bud?
What's going on, dude? I can't believe you're wearing that hat.
You missed when I was explaining, like, I know I look like an idiot.
Yeah.
Nick was with me last week in Dewey when I bought this hat. So he bought one that was similar and he took it back the next day when he got sober.
Immediate regret of returning this hat.
But Nick was actually at Tech a year before us. He also went to Andrew and I's high school. And it was nice when we got down there, he kind of took us under his wing. And our first party was at Nick's house right on Wharton Street, 2 blocks behind Backstreets, which is currently Mellow Mushroom. Yeah. But we were lucky to have you and our other buddy Josh down there, because I'm not sure how our freshman year would have gone. And we knew Nick basically through my freshman year roommate, Greg, who was supposed to be here but couldn't make it. But like I said, we were just lucky that we had older people from our town that could kind of show us the way at Tech. And we always had a leg up on the other freshmen in terms of being able to party. And I wanted to ask you guys, like, with how we've been playing the last few years, has your fandom changed? Do you find yourself not wanting or not caring to get in front of the television to watch Tech? And Andrew, I'll turn to you first.
Yeah, it's changed. I mean, the biggest thing is the Fuente years. I just felt like you talked a lot about what does it mean to be a Hokie, and it just felt like they weren't trying. And it's like I could deal with some of the mistakes and the incompetence last year because it felt like they were trying again. But hopefully the incompetence and the mistakes get better at some point. But when they're not trying it, that's when it makes me not want to watch it. And so there's a couple years there that I just was not excited about it at all.
How about you? For you, Nick, do you still every Saturday is it appointment viewing, or can you skip it if you've got something else going on? Like what's your deal with Tech football these days?
Well, if it's up to me, I'm watching it. But yeah, like you know how things go with the family.
Yes.
For me though, what changed the most, like we still watch, we still go to games. The difference though, like you and I go and we talk players all the time. I do not know the players like I used to know the players, right? Like that's the biggest difference for me is I'm not looking them up. I'm not trying to see like who's coming through unless I get push notifications. And it went from constantly knowing everyone and all the coaches to kind of keeping up with the games weekend by weekend.
And would you say that the point that things changed was kind of when you both had children, or was there a specific point in the last few years, like Andrew mentioned the Fuente years, or like a specific loss where you're just like, we stink now, and I'm making my peace with it. And I'm like,
the Duke game probably
that 45-10.
Yeah, that one was just like. I mean, I still watch every game. I'm still there. It is still appointment TV. It's just like,
but like the chemistry in your brain,
is not there.
I hear that. Or like that ODU game, the first ODU game. I was at a wedding. And I had this, like, I still have a screenshot of it. Like all these text to Robbie is like, after JMU, I didn't want to live through this again, blah, blah, blah. And like, that like really broke me. Like that JMU loss, like it really broke me. And I was like, man, I don't know if things are going to get back, but I despite my distaste for Fuente, like I do lean bullish Hokies. I mean, I'm a co-host of a Hokies podcast, so I do like to look on the bright side, but, it's not always that way for like some of the people we know in our lives that, love the Hokies when we were winning, but maybe not so much now. I always felt like those two games stood out, but for us going forward, like, what do you want to see from Pry and the team in terms of like, do you want to see us get back to a developmental football team that just goes out there and competes and can go to bowls every year? Or do you want us to get back to that recruiting push where we're actually bringing in 4 stars and like, at least I don't know. I just want to know what you guys want from VT as a fan. Do you care if we go to bowls and go to the ACC title, or are you just trying to go down to games and have fun?
I'll say like it's stepping stones at this point. We went so far down, dude. Like it's got to go back to going to bowls. When you say like what broke, when we didn't go to that one bowl and broke the streak, that was it. It was kind of like, okay, so they don't care anymore. Why am I caring as much? Even though I did, but if we get back to going to bowls, which is 6 games, then like, I mean, please just do that. And then I think the recruiting is going to come. It's already getting better, but it's going to come with going back to bowls and kind of getting that cohesiveness back together.
I'm glad you brought up that opting out of the bowl thing, because when that was Fuente's year, that was the 2020 year, which was obviously a trying year for everyone. We went 5-6. So technically we didn't win 6 games, but because it was 2020, not everyone played a full season. So you were allowed to go to the bowl if you got invited. Tech chose not to, and Fuente said it was a team vote, and it rubbed a lot of fans the wrong way. And I remember talking about it with Robbie at the time, and when you're living that COVID day in and day out, you're like, yeah, I get it. Don't go to the bowl. Who cares? The bowl doesn't matter. But like, it did matter to a lot of Tech fans, like, to not go to that bowl. And as time has gone on, I kind of feel like it's mattering more and more, because I know perhaps the bowl streak would have been busted this past year anyway, but it was a sign that things had changed drastically culture wise. Like, why would you could play an extra football game? You don't want to. Like, I don't know why you wouldn't want to do that.
Yeah.
But Andrew, how do you feel like in terms of going forward? Like, you want to see us get back to championships, or you just are content to just watch us on Saturday? And
I think at least competing for the top like 3-4 in the ACC every year, and hopefully get into the championship game like every couple of years. I mean, like what we did when we first went to the ACC.
Yeah.
To me, like, I mean, I agree with you guys on the bowl streak and everything, but if we don't go to a bowl, that's embarrassing. Like that's such a floor. Like what Nick said, it's 6 wins. Like a lot of teams get that. And there's so many bowls, and it's like the names of them are so ridiculous now. And we've been in a whole bunch of them. So I don't know. The top of the ACC, a national championship expectation is like so far down the road at this point. But
going to a bowl, like, we should only miss a bowl game if, as Virginia Tech expectations for me, we should only miss a bowl game like once a decade. Like, it really it should not. And that's when maybe you have a super young team or a brand new coach, and things don't work out and you stink. But being Virginia Tech and having how football is so important to our fan base and how well we show up for games and all, there's no reason that we shouldn't be getting to 6 wins. With regard to the playoff and being 12 teams now, we would have made a 12-team playoff several times in the 2000s. Going forward, do you guys think we should be making that once every cycle to be in the playoff? Or do you think that's too much to ask at this stage?
Probably too much to ask at this point, but yeah, I mean, we should. I mean, I read that Andy Bitter had an article about it where he went through all the years, like the years that we had it, and it was like, yeah, we were pretty awesome for a long time. That if we had a 12-team playoff, we would have been in it. And so, yeah, I do want to get back to that, obviously.
I guess you have to be at least a championship caliber team. You have to make the ACC title game if you want a prayer of going to the playoff. And so I guess it's kind of similar to the question that I just asked. It's just funny to think about it now. With the playoff, it provides such a different metric for success. And if you can get into that, it's like, oh, damn, like that's really good. Do you think, Nick, do you believe in Coach Pry, and do you think that he's the guy that could lead us to a playoff spot?
Yeah, I do believe in Coach Pry. I like how he brought, to me, it felt like the Virginia Tech family mode back into like the football team. It starts there. That's what Beamer had. And that's what I think brought people. That's what was like within Virginia alone and the recruiting that came with it. One of the things though I also like, and I think he can do this, is I think he can take, if it's not all 4 stars, what Beamer did so well, it was he turned 3 stars into draftable NFL players.
Yeah.
And I think Coach Pry can do that because he brings in that right mentality and he brings in the right character of people, which Fuente was not doing. So that's one of the good things that I think is going to come out of Coach Pry.
The relationships that he always talks about in Virginia, he is definitely, and he's reaping what he's saying too. Like, he has said, I want to get back to Virginia high schools. We're going to be in all of them, even if they don't have a player. And he's done that. And he speaks a good game, and last season wasn't good. And he was running defensive coordinator and a head coach, and he figured out that might be too much for him. And we're going to learn a lot this year because he promoted Tyler Bowen to offensive coordinator, even though the offense was so terrible last year. If there is progress on the field, and the progress we've already seen on the recruiting trail, recruiting off a 3-win team, then I think you're really going to start to see the fans turn the tide towards Coach Pry. But right now, it's funny because Fuente, because he was successful early, had everyone supporting him almost too long. And now it's the exact opposite with Pry. Like, he started on such a bad note. You've got people like wanting to already kick him out the door because he only won 3 games. So I do like the fact that you said that you believe in him. I wanted to get
don't most defensive coaches also struggle early, because they're trying to be defensive minded and head coaches. Like, if you look at Pitt, Boston College, a lot of those funds, they go after defense, but the next thing you know is they can't put it all together. And then before you know, once they start to let go, then they like concentrate more on recruiting, and then they start pushing harder, and then that's when the team starts to play better.
That is interesting, and I think your point is well taken, especially when you consider offensive coaches come in. If they hit the ground running, an offense that's good is harder to catch up with than a defense that's good, if that makes sense. Like, if you are defense is chasing people. So if your offense is out scheming and doing really well and it's a new offense and defenses don't know it, look at TCU. You can have a lot of success right away. I do think it's harder to have success right away with a defensive-minded coach. Yeah. I would agree with that. I want to take it back for you guys. When in college, what are your favorite games? Give me a favorite game or favorite game day or favorite experience revolving around the football team that you can remember. Andrew, I'll let you go first.
I mean, obviously the Miami game. We beat Miami in 2003. All 3 of us were together. Probably Brian was with us too.
Yeah.
Anytime we had the Beaver Bowl, like the block kicks in person, that was always so cool to see. Like, I remember there was one against West Virginia that I think we had like 2 in that game. Couldn't tell you what year that was, but yeah. But stuff like that was always the thing that stood out.
I loved being in the stands when we would all, you put the hands over the head. Like, it was every time any special teams play, we're like, block that kick. And they may still do that, but like, it was a possibility to actually block the kick back then. It wasn't just like, yeah, let's block it. I don't know. Like, we had a chance to. Nick, how about you? What are some things that stand out to you in terms of games or tailgates or whatever?
Yeah. I was thinking Miami too, but like one of the things that made it so great, besides the way it went down, like D Hall's strip fumble going back for the touchdown, but like that weekend was Halloween weekend for us. We had, speaking of Delaware buddies, I mean, I had 5 people come in from out of town, spend the whole weekend. Yeah. We went to the Froth and 40 Friday. We did downtown. We went to the game. I mean, it was a show. And it couldn't have been any better for like an entire weekend put together. From a tailgate scene, I mean, our tailgate scenes were Wharton Street. That was True. It was kind of like lacking on the tailgate side, but I think we made the most of it.
Speaking of our Delaware friends, our buddies that went to UD, when you would go back to Delaware and you'd party, like homecoming was always really good at UD, right? Like, it was always a pretty big show. And I remember thinking, like, this is every weekend at Tech. Like, whenever we have a game, it's like homecoming for Delaware. Like, it was our Wharton Street tailgates, the game days, the excitement on Friday. That's what an FCS team in Delaware, which was a decent football school, but like, we were so lucky to be at a school that just like raged every football weekend. Yeah. Like, and I guess it's probably still like that now to a degree, depending on where you go. I know Center Street's like supposed to be crazy. And I've never had the pleasure. I've been too much of an old to do something like that. But I just can't imagine the vibe is the same as it was. Pulling full old man card here. These kids today, they don't know what it was like.
Our Wharton Street wake up songs, right? Like whatever song of the year, and just blasting that music to wake up not just your own apartment or townhouse, but it was all 4 townhouses and the 2 apartments below. I'll never forget that.
Yeah. I think Thug Mansion was one. Yeah. We had the Nelly Heart of a Champion, I think might have been one of those.
That one actually blew Dave backwards. Our friend Dave, he was blasting it so loud.
Did you guys have any other kind of memories from college of like us doing some, I know our friend Josh might be on the list, but like just some dumb stuff we might have done back in the day on a game day, or like maybe smuggling some booze into the stadium or anything like that. Do you got any stories for me?
Yeah. These stories about you, Pete?
Yeah, well, it can be about me, or it can involve you, or it can involve Nick.
I mean, I remember when you were doing pull-ups on the fire hose pipes at Tots after a game. That was good.
Oh yeah, that was 2007 after the ECU game. So it was the game where we played ECU and they released all the balloons up. I was showing my affection by doing pull-ups at the Tots on the Tots sprinkler system and then was promptly kicked out. Yes.
Yeah, not even a student anymore.
Not even a student anymore. I was working. Yes.
But did someone bet him to like do a certain number of pull-ups within a minute? Just like I bet I can do 60 push-ups in a minute.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. I had a penchant for those physical challenges back in the day. But our buddy Josh, I mean, he was the one that would like take the Ziploc bags full of alcohol and like wrap them around his waist, right?
The Josh TV moments,
Yes.
crawling home. Hey, dude, you're missing a flip-flop and your shorts are ripped. What happened?
Yeah.
Don't ask me about it.
Somehow makes it through an entire game, but is crawling back home.
I remember
When
the
we
one
find
going
him.
into, I don't remember what game it was, but running into the stadium, not running into the stadium, but like walking up Washington, and we say, we're getting close, dude. You got to get rid of that, and just taking the handle and just tossing it.
God, ought to be young.
Pete, my favorite thing with you is I remember hearing music, going down looking for you because we were all partying, and I was looking for you and I could not find you, and I hear something coming from your room, and I thought, oh, like I don't know what's going on inside, but whatever, I'm going to open up that door, and it's you sitting in front of the computer rapping, being recorded
with a mic.
Nick, what are you doing here?
Elaine, what are you doing?
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. There was quite a few freestyle Fridays that happened in the apartment back in the day, much to me and Andrew's roommate Joey's chagrin, I would say.
Yeah, we need to bring back we need to bring back those songs that you used to put on the podcast. The weekly pump up song.
You know, if you scroll back in our podcast feed, you will find the Virginia Tech weekly song. There was at least one season where I would put out a song for about half the games, and they were goofy as all hell. Maybe one of these days I'll bring it back, but I don't know how I had that much time on it. I'm writing a song. I was recording the podcast. I suppose I was doing my office job. I don't know. But I do work for the government. So what are you going to say?
Maybe we make it to a bowl this year. You'll do one for the bowl.
That's right. I'll have some time
That's
between the last regular season game and the bowl. All right. Before I bring in our last guest, record predictions from each of you guys for this season.
I'm going
Andrew.
6-6.
Okay.
It is. It's stepping stones, and if we get to 6-6, that's the best thing.
I think 6-6 would be, while my prediction, also very awesome for this program.
Yeah. Can we beat ODU? Can we beat some of these teams that have just been hanging around, and we just need to be taking care of the nonsense at this point.
I'm with you, dude. We are 2 touchdown favorites in that ODU game. I want to put the beat down on them. Mm-hmm. Like we really need to after last year. Andrew, what's your prediction?
Yeah, I mean, at least 2 games more than last year would be nice. But the 6, I feel like, is a good prediction based on what you guys have been saying on your past couple of podcasts. I think we'd get the 6.
I certainly hope so. You guys drinking anything over there? Nick, what do you got?
I got Offshoot Beer Company. It's called Relax.
So, that's a good one. I like that one.
Yeah, it's pretty easy.
Is it a hazy?
Huh?
Is it a hazy IPA?
It is hazy. It says it's just a hazy IPA in parentheses at the bottom.
Okay. All right.
Yeah. I also gave it to my wife weeks ago, and she hasn't drank it. So this 4-pack's about to be destroyed.
Nice. You're like, oh, here's a gift for you.
Yeah.
It's like when it was Father's Day back in the day, and you're like, hey, Dad, I got you Madden. All right. Andrew, you got anything over there? Or you just chilling?
I forgot to even open it, but I've got a tasty Mountain Dew, hard Mountain Dew.
Oh,
Blast.
God.
It'd probably be best putting in an actual Baja Blast from Taco Bell before you drink it. But
dude,
is that left over from last year's Beer Fest?
It is. It's the only one left.
Yeah.
I kept it on my bookshelf.
Of, when we used to do the Code Red vodka before games, like before a Virginia Tech game, we would take a Code Red Mountain Dew, drink it down to the label, so none was wasted, fill it back up with vodka, and then drink the entire 2-liter. So like, it's caffeine, vodka, all that red coloring. Like, I turned into a crazy person.
You did. You used to come in raging with it, like full extension out. Say, well, Pete, see you later.
Good last memory there, Andrew. Thank you for that. All right, guys, I'm going to bring on Richard here, but thanks for coming on today,
See you,
dudes.
man. Thanks.
Talk
All
to you
right, thanks,
soon.
Pete.
What's up, Ricky?
Hey, Pete. How you doing?
All right, let's see if I can kick these guys out. Here we go. 1, 2.
Oh, don't
All
kick
right.
them out. Man, that's fun.
All right. So Richard was technically not a college friend. However, he did go to Virginia Tech, took maybe a more circuitous route to Tech. But we started becoming super close friends in Arlington, and it was a slow burn to the point where now we're very, very tight. But we had you on our podcast just a couple years ago as a
Yes.
UK basketball fan when we were playing Kentucky at Kentucky. Me, Richard, and his brother went to the game. But before that, we recorded at Arash's store for way too long and got very drunk and had a great time. But now I'm having you on as a Virginia Tech fan.
There you go.
Where is your Virginia Tech fandom in terms of football right now? Would you call yourself a casual?
Yeah, I mean, definitely always casual, right? Like, I can get really into it when it's worth the emotional energy that's there, and it has not been worth that in the last 10 years or so. So I respect, and we need all the people like yourself who are there the whole time, because it's not going to be me. And you have to sustain a program with real fans that are not crappy fans like me who say, okay, well, we bottomed out in 2015 and we bottomed out again in 2019, 2020. How are we going to continue to do this without me screwing up my weekend? And it's you all. That's how you do it. But, we're back. It's better now. Yeah, I would say much more positive vibes going through the program. And I'm happy to actually engage much stronger these days.
Well, and that's actually good because you said vibes, because we are not doing better in terms of a win total. However,
oh no,
you're on Twitter. You keep, even though you may call yourself a casual, you keep pace with what's happening, and I guess you just feel that the fan base is in a better place than it was the last few years under Fuente.
Yeah, I mean, we made a mistake, right? So, like, if you go back to 2015 when Frank retired, not to go insane with the story, but like something else happened right when Frank retired, right? The O'Bannon case decision in 2015 hit 2 months prior to Frank Beamer actually formally retiring. And you could tell at the time when that happened that the structure of college football was going to change. And the decision making around who was going to be brought into the program and how we were going to move forward was predicated on a concept in which we were going to sit around and try to find the new Frank Beamer. And the reality was Frank was cooked by the time he retired in 2015. Now, he deserved that. He could stay as long as he wanted because he did an amazing job at Virginia Tech and he could do whatever he wanted. But the game had passed him by. And the thought process seemed to be from, the AD office and everybody around Virginia Tech was, we're not going to do a reboot. We're going to do a re-up. And that was not going to be successful. It was successful briefly for 2 seasons because you got the recruits that Frank handed over, and then it crashed and burned. And we were at least able to bottom out now. And I know you're a big process fan in Philadelphia.
Yes.
But part of the joy of being a fan is getting to the bottom and then watching something rise up and believing that there's an opportunity for something that you can actually support and be on the train the entire time to watch it rise up and watch that happen. And I don't know if at the end of the day we've found that now, but at least we've gotten to a point where we can say we're not trying to pretend anymore. And I think that's where the vibes come from. Even if we don't see the results on the field, the right things are happening. And the way that Brett Pry approaches the college football landscape these days seems to be realistic. He's not closing down conversations with any of the media. He's not walling off. He is saying all the right things, recruiting in all the right places, trying to get things going in a way that seems productive, and other programs have had success doing those things. Now, is his coaching up to snuff? I think you commented on that earlier. I'm a little worried about that. I'm a little worried about our offense, but at least you can see where there's potential. And worst case, you could see us resetting and trying to find the right coach next time instead of throwing a Hail Mary on Fuente, which did not work out.
Yeah, they're hitting all the high notes on what they wanted from a coach with Coach Pry. Take the on-field stuff away, but in terms of the recruiting, the relationships, the media access, all the stuff you hit on, like we did that right, and I think they knew what kind of guy they were getting. But it is funny how you become the victim of your own success. And that's what happened to Frank. And those years, like me and Boo Boo were talking about, Brian, Boo Boo is his nickname that I was trying not to call him tonight, but in 2003, when we start the year and we're kicking butt and everyone's happy, and then we lose one game and everyone's furious. And like, and that's how it was for Tech. We lose our first game and everyone's angry and everyone's upset. Like we weren't ever Alabama, but like we were really darn good. And so every loss hurts so much and it creates a negative kind of vibe. Now, if we go to a bowl, we're going to be ecstatic. And I do love the idea of the process and watching the Jakar Sampsons of the world and seeing your team grow and get better. It's like building the Lego is better than when the Lego is done. You know what I'm saying? And so in that sense, I do agree with you. And I hope that Pry is the guy. I believe that he is, and that he knows all the aspects of what it takes. It's just a matter of, can he execute it?
Yeah, I mean, X and O's is really the only question, because everything else seems to be check, 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 check. It's like hitting all of the signposts you'd hope for, and it's just, can we actually get the results on the field? There's been some questionable tactics, some questionable play calls in the moment over the last couple of seasons, but he's a young coach. He's learned. Well, he's not that young, but like he's young for the first time head coach. So like you hope that that's a development as well, right? You develop players, you also develop coaching, and that's the thing you can learn from.
He learned a ton from last year, and one of the things that you learn as a head coach, and one of the best skills as a head coach, is knowing the people under you. And Frank always said that. Frank's like, I was okay. It was the guys under me that I knew were great. And he has Fontel Mines. He has Coach Jones. Tyler Bowen is the one that so much of everything is relying on, because Tyler Bowen was the tight ends coach last year, and now he's been promoted to the quarterbacks coach as well as the OC. And he was OC last year and he wasn't good. And I know everyone's talking about Brad Glenn. Was it meshing in terms of the QB coach and him? And Price said, I wanted to make Bowen the QB coach and the OC right off the bat. I should have listened to my gut. And so we'll see if his gut is right, because now it's all out there. And if Bowen doesn't have a good year, I'm not sure Pry's going to have a choice but to start over again, because he's going to have to blame somebody, because like he's one of the lower paid coaches in the ACC because he wasn't a head coach before. And that if he can't get us to at least 5 wins, I think people are going to be a little upset, despite it being year 2. I think people are expecting, with the recruiting momentum we're gaining, I think they're expecting a little bit more.
Yeah, I don't think that's fair, but I understand. And he also should have time to develop. If he picked the wrong people, as long as he can pivot quickly,
yes,
that's okay, right? So
exactly. And that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
And we kind of covered how you feel VT is covered nationally or perceived nationally. Where do you think, with all the realignment stuff that's happening, do you think that, say the ACC blows up or whatever, do you feel as though VT is a big enough brand and has the fan base to warrant a seat at the table?
I mean, I think I've got a lot of friends and family on the SEC side of the house, and they actually seem very, very cordial towards Virginia Tech. They think that's a good fit for the SEC, right? So that's what you'd hope for, that you get an invite to the SEC. Now, having said that, be careful what you wish for. But I think predicting anything at all really with conference realignment right now is a bit of a mess, right? It's quicksand. Everything that they're developing is sitting on top of a very unstable foundation. And you could see it going the direction of something like the Super League that was trying to happen over in Europe in soccer, right?
Yeah, soccer.
Where essentially they'll try to just peel away completely, take 30 teams. And are we in that right now? Probably not. If you asked us at the end of like 2009, yeah, we would have been. So can we climb back to a place where no matter whatever that foundation ends up being built on, as we see the effects of all of this stuff shake out, I think we can. You'd hope we time it right, because if we don't time it right, we could be locked out forever. But so far, we still are being able to, I think we can trade on our reputation over the last 20 years. And that seems to be an opportunity, whether it's in the Big Ten or whether it's in the SEC. I think personally, I prefer the SEC. I think the SEC would prefer us over some of those other options. I think that's possible. Now, could we get left out? Yeah, certainly.
Yeah.
And you wouldn't hope for that.
And it really raises the pressure on Coach Pry and the program and Whit Babcock. Like, you got to get good. Like, you got to get good soon. You got to try to get to a bowl this year. You got to try to get to 8 the next year. You got to try to get to 10 the year after that. Like, you want this to be a slow but sure build. And I'm not saying it's going to be that. I'm just saying, like, now is the time. If we've already been like it's been a decade of this. I mean, 2011 was the last time we were in the national title conversation. We were number 5 in the country going into the championship games. 2016, won 10 games, but we're never in that real conversation. And now it's 2023. I mean, the high school kids have no idea that we were ever good. And so in terms of this conference realignment stuff, we have such a loyal fan base who has stuck through this through and through. We sell out games every year, not every game, but we sell out a lot of games every year. How much longer can that go on without the success? And so
you need something. Yeah.
We need something for people to latch onto.
And maybe that's a good time to take a break and move towards the Hokie recruiting or Hokie fundraising, because we need to spend money on, we need one of these programs where you can, and I don't mean this from Virginia Tech, I mean it from a booster perspective. We now can have ways in which we can get players to have compensation for NLI, right? Or NIL. And I don't know that we've got anything going there. I mean, you're more plugged in than I am.
We have a fairly robust NIL program from what I understand. And you're familiar with the name Mahul, right?
Yeah.
He's one of our richest alumni, Octo and private equity type stuff, whatever. He's very rich, and I think he's pledged a lot of money, and it's helped us remain competitive in a lot of different
areas. Time to break the bank right now. Like, and
I think that couple of these transfers that we brought in, like, really have no business being at Virginia Tech. And I think some of it is because our NIL game is actually better than a lot of people think.
Yeah, and that's some of the check boxes, right? These people are now realistic. We've got the right people for what the college sports world is today.
And when they asked Coach Pry, I think it was the Key Play had him with an interview, and they said, "You have $10 million towards the Virginia Tech program. Like, where do you want it?" And he said NIL. Yeah. And that was the most refreshing, like, okay, I understand. Yeah. He gets it. I get it. We know where this is all headed. Okay, we need NIL money.
Yeah, we got to stop denying we don't like it, because nobody probably likes the way college sports is being
it's the Wild West
now. But if you want to compete, you got to play.
You got to play the game. Other than quarterback, and this is kind of going a little bit back, but you've always talked about we never get any big players. We never get any of this player. Like, where do you want Virginia Tech to be elite? I asked Brian this question earlier, but in terms of a position, like, other than quarterback, because that's obvious. Everyone wants elite quarterback. Where do you want us to be elite again?
Cornerback, man. I mean, I remember I think it's the 2005 season where we had like 18 NFL. I don't remember what the number is. Insane amount of NFL players on that team.
Number one defense in the country.
But the one I remember most, absolutely the most, we would go to the game and we get out of the games and we go to Big Al's, where a lot of the football players would hang out. And Jimmy Williams would be there. And he would be wearing a hat that said Jimmy Williams on it. He would be wearing a T-shirt with his face on it. And he would be screaming, "I'm Jimmy Williams," the whole time. And it was infectious. I was like, hell yes. Like, this is what we're about. Hell yes. Like, I want this. I want
like that Deion Sanders type of personality.
Absolutely.
Like, all about me.
Stuff on and off the field. And it was endearing to me personally, and I would love to see more of that. I know we've got a lot of the like DBU stuff, that obviously that's bread and butter, but like some of the cornerbacks we've had come through that were NFL level talent, and we had consistently been able to promote those, and they have usually very long careers in the NFL as well, because they don't take too many hits. It's just great. You can see them, you can watch them on Sundays afterwards for a long time. I think that's a great position. I'd love to see us do more with.
Nice, dude. Very, very good answer. And the Jimmy Williams throwback's a good one, because I don't think he sticks in people's mind. He was so good at Tech, All-American, but he was almost more of a linebacker. And when he got to the NFL, it didn't transition well. So he didn't have the long NFL career, but he was amazing. Like, really, really amazing at Virginia Tech. When you were in college, Richard, let's take it back to the college days.
Oh boy.
What was your pregame move? Did you what was your bar? Where did you party in college? What was your go-to weekend situation?
Yeah, I mean, we did a lot of pre-games at our own place. So we lived in Collegiate Suites, and we would kind of do that. But if we were to go out prior to the game, we would go down to Harold Street a lot because it's walkable to the stadium. We had a couple of friends that had houses down there, and you drink, you have a few beers before you walk over. And then generally when you walk through the forest, you have to remember to not bring your beer because there's always an undercover cop that's looking for that open
That's
container.
very true.
I had several friends pop for that. And it's guys, we know the rules here. Don't bring the beer with you. That would be pretty normal. And then once we got to the right age, we would probably go to Hokie House or Champs or something a little less obviously treaded to get easy.
Were you a
access to
Rivermill
the bar.
guy ever?
Say what?
Rivermill, was that one of your spots or no?
No, because I didn't I was not ready for that craft beer vibe, right?
Okay.
Which was probably at the time is Sierra Nevada,
right. There wasn't a whole lot back then. Was Sharky's was open when you were there, and then it moved later on to where it is now, and on the corner spot. But Sharky's was there. They had the big beers. Is that right?
I don't even recall. I thought Sharky's was where it was, and they just expanded it. I thought they did it.
When I got to Tech, Woody's was where it was.
Oh, you're right. Yep.
Right on that corner, and Sharky's was next to it.
Okay.
And it kind of had an upstairs and a down. But you weren't in a fraternity, but you were in the snowboard club. Am I correct?
Yeah.
And was that did you guys actually go snowboarding, or was it just a drinking club that you called snowboarding?
But yes. Yeah. So basically what happened was we had a bunch of buddies of mine from high school who all went to VT. We were very much into snowboarding when we were going to college, and there was an existing club that was there. This guy, Will, amazing dude, super down to earth, but he was running a 20-person club, and it would be show up, talk about the best hills you've had, the best powder you've had, where are the places you want to go. And it was more like a group therapy session for people into to snowboarding. It was awesome. He ended up going to snowshoe and running the park there. He's a great dude. We kind of approached it a little bit differently. We saw it as an arbitrage, right? So we came in, and the three of us were president, vice president, treasurer. They somehow gave me the money. I don't know why they did that. That was a bad idea. But essentially, we knew the fraternities at Virginia Tech and the sororities at Virginia Tech were sort of skating on thin ice because VT had built out at the time the on-campus Greek housing. And if you screwed up, they would take your housing away, or they take your charter away, or whatever it is. I don't recall exactly. So they were all being very, very polite Greek things, and the parties there were not particularly great.
On Oak Lane, you're talking about.
Exactly. So we had an opportunity there where we thought, okay, well, we don't have that rule, right? We can gather $25 at a time for every person who's there. We can deliver value on that because we can get you discounted lift tickets, and we can schedule stuff, and we can go to the companies that sell gear and say, hey, we've got 100 or 300, and it ultimately was around 600 members. Why don't you, work with us for those? But also that meant every one of those was an ability to throw a giant rager, right? Or buy kegs. And we could get a little loose with it compared to some of these other places. So it was a lot of fun, and it was banned, I think, 3 years after we left college. We had put some guardrails on it to rein it in. And when we left, I don't know what happened to those guardrails, but I know that it no longer exists.
Where was there a house?
Yeah, we had a house that was out on Glade Road, out past the Kroger. And that was one of the rules, right? We had to hire drivers to get people out there to have a good time and make sure that you paid for that.
This is the Phi-Sci thing where they pick you up at Castle and then bust you out there.
And that was always fun, but it was that you had to be real careful with that out there. Yeah. But we did have a house. We treated it sort of, it was a good time. It was a little.
You made a lot of good friends through that, right? You met Trace through there. You met some other guys through that club.
That's right. Yeah.
That's awesome, dude. But that's the beauty about college. I wasn't in a fraternity either, but some of the guys you talked to tonight, meet them on the hall, meet them in your apartment complex, and our little apartment complex kind of became our little fraternity.
Right.
And you find those different communities at Tech, and that's what makes Tech so great. You don't need to subscribe to one type of thing. And it was great to kind of talk to each of you guys tonight and get the different perspectives, talk a little bit of old school stuff. Was there anything else you wanted to bring up, Richard, before we kind of
Pete,
tie
I want
things
to
up?
talk about my beer.
Oh yeah, bring up. Yeah, tell me
And
what
this
you're
one's
drinking,
for you.
buddy.
This is a call out to Bob and Barbara's.
Oh,
in Philadelphia. I have a Senate beer, which is a DC beer, and I have a shot. So we're going to do it citywide here.
I like it. I've got two, currently have 2 beers open, so I'll just
you do that. I'll do the shot. Then we'll take it.
Cheers, buddy.
A little bourbon and a beer.
Yeah, that in Philadelphia, what Richard's doing, they call it a citywide. And if you go to most bars and you say, I want a citywide, they give you a shot and a beer. And it's usually a cheap beer, a PBR. I know in DC, the old Boilermakers were Schlitz and
oh yeah,
Jim Beam. But yeah, if you Bob and Barb's on South Street, go there. You'll pay about $3. You'll get a shot of Jim Beam and a PBR. You can't
take your parents. They'll be very disappointed.
Yeah, didn't you take your dad there this year?
I did, and we walked right out.
Yeah, it's like the nastiest place, but it's a lot of fun.
Yeah,
the Jazz on Friday nights is good.
Richard,
record prediction for this season.
I'm going to go 5-7. I'm with Nicole. I'm splitting the difference. I understand Brian's perception. I think there are opportunities on the schedule. Obviously, ODU is very funny. Like my old coworker's stepson is hopefully the starting quarterback for that. So that'll be very interesting, just rooting for it. But obviously
the transfer from Fordham.
Fordham. Yeah, that's right. So either way, that's going to be a positive outcome, but really I hope we put them into the ground, and then we find a couple of other ways to claw up a few wins, but it's going to be hard. I mean, you're on the climb, right? So you can't expect things to be perfect, but if you can see windows of opportunity, see areas for improvement, that'd be great. But 5-7, I think I'd be good with it.
Awesome, dude. Well, thank you so much for sticking around. I know you were in the chat kind of waiting to talk, just watching us talk. So I do appreciate you you hanging. Man, thank you to Nicole, Brian, Andrew, Nick. I think that's everybody, and Richard. Good episode. I've been wanting to do something like this for a long time, have a couple beers, talk a little old school. And like, this really could have been 2 hours. I was trying to, I didn't want to cut the friends off, but I was trying to cut them off to move to the next one.
People are not going to watch if you do that.
Exactly. Exactly. I will say what I'm drinking before I let Richard go. And that is the Hop Reach IPA. Allagash. I have not had an Allagash beer on here in a long time because I'm not a huge fan of the Allagash White, and I think a lot of their IPA offerings have been mediocre. But this one, 6.8% citrusy, tropical, refreshing. It is kind of all those things. There's no fruit flavor though. It's just kind of a juicy, regular IPA without the haze. There's no. There's not really a haze in the glass. You can see right through it, but
just say you hate it. It's fine.
It's not. I don't hate it. It's medium. It's mid, right? That's what the kids say. It's mid. But anyway, you can hit us on Twitter. It's at 2deepvt. It's 2deepvt@gmail.com. If you want to send us anything, email us anything or what have you. We're going to be coming back next week with a very special guest. I hope so. Richard, these things, it's so hard to make sure the people are like ready to go. And like, that's why I really appreciate all you guys being ready to go. The guest we're trying to get has 200,000 followers on Twitter. So it would be a big time. It would be a big time get for us. No, we have a friend. He posts shirtless pictures on Twitter, and like he had more followers than me in like 10 minutes when he first signed up for Twitter than I had 9 years of tweeting stupid stats about the Hokies. So sex sells, people. That's something to keep in mind. But no, this is a sports college football person who has 200,000 followers, and we're hoping he will come on with us next Monday. So we'll see if that happens. And until next time, go Hokies.